Uh, Ever wonder what it takes to become a legend in horror? Um, Back in 1985, Stephen King boldly declared Clive Barker as the future of horror. But 40 years later, did that prediction hold true? Let's dive into the story of how one author's vision shaped a genre. By the mid 1980s, Stephen King was everywhere. His books dominated bestsellers lists, and Hollywood clamored for adaptations. Uh, King wasn't just a writer, he was a vocal champion of the genre, always eager to highlight the work of other talented creators. So he continues this tradition today, regularly sharing his recommendations online. Uh, King had several contemporaries vying for the horror crown, including Dean Koontz and James Herbert. But it was Clive Barker who truly caught his eye. Barker burst onto the scene with his uh, Books of Blood.
Um, uh, a series of chilling, often gruesome short stories.
King immediately recognized something special, famously stating he'd seen the future of horror in Barker's work. And that quote became Barker's calling card, accompanying nearly every project he touched. King praised Barker's originality, claiming his writing made other horror authors seem asleep for the last 10 years. It was a huge endorsement, and it opened doors for a rising star. Uh, Barker's career exploded throughout the 1980s and 90s. He penned best-selling novels like The Damnation Game and The Great and Secret Show, and he then transitioned to filmmaking, creating iconic worlds and characters. In 1987, Barker adapted his novella, The Hellbound Heart, into the horror classic Hellraiser, introducing the world to the unforgettable Pinhead. He followed that up with Candyman in 1992, based on his short story, The Forbidden. Barker was incredibly prolific, erecting films, producing others, writing books and comics, and even venturing into video games with titles like Undying and Clive Barker's Jericho. He was a true creative force, constantly pushing boundaries. And sadly, in 2012, a dental visit led to a life-threatening case of toxic shock syndrome, leaving Barker in a coma. And while he recovered, uh, the experience understandably slowed his creative output. Uh, Despite this setback, Barker's impact on horror remains undeniable air and air, or his writing is often graphic, but it's also imbued with warmth and humanity. He frequently sides with the monsters, exploring their perspectives and challenging traditional narratives, as seen in works like Cabal, later adapted as Nightbreed. And Guillermo del Toro frequently cites Barker as an influence with his own work, often featuring monsters as heroes. Other filmmakers, including Brandon Braga, Scott Derrickson, and Mike Flanagan, have also acknowledged Barker's impact on their work. Even Nick Cage's cult favorite Mandy draws clear inspiration from Hellraiser. Authors like China Miéville, Poppy Z. Bright, and Joe R. Lansdale have also praised Barker's novels. Um, while Barker may not have achieved the same level of mainstream recognition as Stephen King, King's prediction was remarkably accurate. Barker not only became a major voice in horror, but his influence continues to shape the genre today. Barker's work was always going to be a bit too dark and unconventional for everyone. Um, he wasn't interested in churning out sequels for profit. Instead, he focused on artistic pursuits that genuinely excited him, from paintings to comics to films and video games. Barker constantly took risks and explored new creative avenues. Um, and 40 years after King's endorsement, the horror landscape might not perfectly reflect Barker's vision, but it's undoubtedly richer and more complex thanks to his contributions. He pushed the boundaries of gore and sexuality, encouraging other creators to be bolder and more imaginative. Uh, Guillermo del Toro feels like his most direct student, but his influence can be seen in recent shows and films like American Horror Story, The Substance, and Stranger Things. Barker is still writing and creating, so we can expect even more thrilling, unsettling, and inspiring work in the future. Stephen King was right. Clive Barker didn't become the king, but he became an incredibly important figure in the realm of horror. Um, and speaking of horror, did you know that Barker once wrote a screenplay about a haunted teddy bear? And talk about a nightmare. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.